This is the third and final clip we're going to share here on Curiosity Daily from our conversation with virologist Paul Dupré. He's the director of the Center for Vaccine Research at the University of Pittsburgh and a professor of microbiology and cellular genetics. We had a great conversation with Paul about his latest research and some of the science behind vaccines. And you can actually find our full uncut conversation for free on our Patreon page at patreon.com/curiosity.com, all spelled out. But right now, we'd like to share what Paul told us when Ashley passed along a question from one of our anonymous listeners.
What would you say to someone who isn't sure whether it's a bigger risk to let their kid be unvaccinated or to vaccinate their kid? Maybe because they're afraid of additives and preservatives, and maybe heavy metals are a thing that talked about a lot that might be in vaccines.
Well, what's always clear is it's always much more risky to get the disease than it is to get the vaccine. It's always much, much safer to be vaccinated than to take the chance of getting the disease. But that's where I have significant sympathies for parents, because remember that parents are only trying to do the right thing for their kids. Every parent wants to do the best for their child. So therefore, parents look for reassurance, and parents look beyond maybe the CDC website, which gives really good information about how vaccines have helped, and move into other parts of the internet where sometimes the level of rigour, sometimes the facts get a little bit blurred. And, you know, the most important thing is facts matter, and all of the science speaks to the fact that vaccines work, and that the government and CDC and clinicians would not be vaccinating people with something which they believed was unsafe. I mean, no clinician would do that, and the clinicians, that's their patients. So common practice says that it's safe. All of the science says it's safe. It's always more risky to get the disease. There are many additives that have been in vaccines that are no longer in vaccines. But again, even the evidence to suggest that things like mercury in vaccines was a problem, it's very, very tenuous. And it certainly pales into insignificance whenever you look at what a 1 in 1,000 chance of your child dying from a disease would be. That's a big, big difference in risk if you get infected by the natural wild virus in real life. But again, I just totally understand why people want to do the right thing. And then it's back to a little bit of the conversation that we had at the start. You know, this is really hard to get what's a virus, what's a vaccine, what does this all mean? People, again, it's difficult for people who just don't have that concept of what a vaccine is and where it comes from and what sort of cells and where did these cells come from and what's in it and all of these questions that people have. And I think that those are really genuine questions. I think that it's absolutely critical for scientists who work on these viruses, for clinicians who vaccinate people with these vaccines, to be able to explain why they believe they're safe, why they believe that the vaccine is worth taking. And why the vaccines, and based on the evidence from the past, why vaccines have made such a phenomenal contribution. But I think the days are gone of being able to say to people who walk into a physician's office, I want to vaccinate you, and the person has questions, and just saying, oh, well, trust me, I'm a doctor. Just do it without having a conversation, without being able to explain why they're useful. I think that people do deserve answers, but I think that people have to also listen to those answers from professionals who really have worked on those viruses for years, who have vaccinated many, many children. And they have to look at the scientific data, which is absolutely conclusive in terms of measles not causing autism, measles not causing Crohn's disease, measles not being linked to multiple sclerosis, measles not being all these unsubstantiated claims that end up in the literature that are shown to be false, But because they grab hold of people's imaginations and people want to do the right things for their kids, they lead to genuine people having genuine questions. And I think that that's where we have to be ready to explain why we believe that vaccines are important and why vaccines work. And again, that's where going to sources which are reputable is so important whenever you don't do your own research, right? For me, research is what we do in the laboratory, is what we do in terms of the scientific method. But you do find out what has been published, looking at other people's research. And again, it's very, very clear that vaccines are not causing autism.